All right. Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Wednesday, July the 20th, 2022. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by the magic of Bill Gates and Microsoft Skype program by Tim. Hello, Tim.
Yeah.
I can
Can
hear
you
you
hear me?
loud and clear.
Oh,
Can you hear us out there in the chat? Jump on in there. Say hello. We'd love to hear from you, what you have to say on some of these topics. If you've just joined us for the first time
yeah.
tonight, tonight's our news and current events roundup. On the Sunday evening shows at 10 p.m., we do a specific topic of discussion. On the Wednesday show, we fly by the seat of our pants, which we do on Sunday to a degree too. Actually, it's really what we do most of this show. We have some things that we want to discuss, but you never know what is going to be said. You never know what one of us is going to utter or where the conversation is going to go or where you in the chat may lead it. So that's what makes doing the show so exciting and fun for us, and I hope you enjoy it too. So jump on in there and give us your thoughts on these. How you doing today, Tim?
Can't
Good.
complain.
What do you know about snakes in our area?
What I know like about snakes as far as different
Yeah,
kinds, or what do you mean?
yeah. You see many snakes around?
I've seen quite a few
Yeah,
snakes this year. I saw a couple of big black ones. Saw a garter snake. I've not seen anything like any copperheads or anything like that. But I've not really been out in the mountainous parts too
yeah. I've not
much.
seen any.
Everything I've seen.
I've not seen any either. B got bit by a garter snake today out in the yard. Took a chomp on her
Mm-hmm.
leg. I used to get bit by those things a lot playing with them when I was a kid. They'd hang on to you and you'd be like, ah, look, it's got me. Its teeth are like little needles stuck into you. It's just hanging on.
Yeah, they're not real quick either. So it's funny about it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of snakes that we have in Tennessee, but there are only two poisonous snakes, aren't there? We got the eastern, or not the eastern diamondback, but the timber rattlesnake, and we've got the copperhead. Now, in some areas of Tennessee, you may
Mm-hmm.
have a water moccasin, to or the cottonmouth, as it's also called. Let's show you a picture of these guys real quick. They're in the western third, yeah. So as, get over there near Alabama, Mississippi, that kind of area, you might run into one of these guys. But here in northeast Tennessee, you got your copperhead, is a poisonous snake, and if you
Yeah. For anybody who's not in the know, I guess most of us creekers and people from Hampton, well, anybody around here would know that if you smell cucumbers, allegedly those are around you.
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard also that the babies are the most dangerous because they still have the full venom capacity of an adult snake, but they don't know how to control their venom yet. So a snake only has so much venom, and a copperhead adult will conserve some of its venom when it bites, so that it may not give you a full dose when it hits you the first time. But a baby doesn't know how to do that yet, and I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that a lot. Um,
I've heard that, and it makes sense because they'll do what's called a dry bite because they don't want
right.
to waste it on something and get away from it.
They're using their venom to,
So
to kill prey. So if they don't have to use it to defend themselves, then they don't want to. Yeah, I've heard that too. So we got the
I've seen plenty of copperheads, but I've honestly never seen a rattlesnake just out in the wild. I've only seen them in like the zoos and nature preserves and
uh,
stuff. So I mean, that's a good thing. I run across a rattlesnake out here in the wild. That
yeah.
would
I've
suck.
run across a few.
I want to play
I've run
with it.
across a few. The one I ran across one that was it was in the road on the way up to Watauga Lake, and somebody had run over the snake, and it was still alive, but they had a tire track, smashing its body to the ground. It couldn't move. Um, so a friend of mine and I, took care of it so it wouldn't suffer anymore. But that's the only.
So you went eating over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah.
Like
No,
back up.
no. I was a little more merciful than that. But yeah, it.
Nah, I don't even. If I see snakes in the road, like there was one down across my house the other day trying to just catch some suns. I walked down and grabbed him by the tail and pulled him out of the way because I knew somebody'd run over
Yeah,
him. So 'cause I don't want my black snakes getting killed because as soon as you do that, you're going to have just an
that's
abundance of
right.
rats, and I really don't want that.
Not only that, if you have non-poisonous snakes like garter snakes and rat snakes, they actually will keep poisonous snakes away. So a lot of people are really scared of them and will even kill them. And just so I don't judge you. Protect your property, protect your life. But I think it's a felony. It's illegal to kill a snake in Tennessee. Now a lot of people do that. Um, yeah, it
Is it?
is. A lot of people don't know it, but it is. So keep that in mind.
I don't know. I'm
Though
feeling it.
if you do now, mine was the story that I just told was nearly 20 years ago. But if you do, I'd keep it to yourself, because somebody might narc you out for it, even though lots of people do it. Hey, spill the tea. We got some people in the chat here. She says she's fortunate enough to have no snake encounters. Sean says that's one thing I'd be concerned about with moving to Tennessee. He's talking about snakes. He doesn't like them. Ben tells him when his mother had to fight off a 6-foot chicken snake off their front porch. Hey, Maria D. Nice to see you tonight. Yeah, we got so yeah. B got bit by that little old garter snake, and it's funny because she got I don't know if it bit her or I think it tried to bite her last year. It's probably the same damn snake. It was a lot smaller, and it tried to get her on the leg, and so yeah, another encounter with a garter snake. I have had one little copperhead up here I had to get rid of.
Do you ever wonder, like, I don't know, I keep going back to, I guess here lately I've been really obsessed with like hermetic principles and natural law, and like especially number two, which is transcendence and as
Mm-hmm.
above, so below. Do you think there's any, well, do you think there's any intentional analogy, I guess what you call it, with like the analogy of rats and snakes and how we refer to people as rats or snakes, and how I mean, think maybe they're not the same
Interesting.
thing, and maybe in reality you need a balance of each to keep. Maybe we need more snakes in the world to take care of all the
Maybe.
rats that are currently in the, or I don't know. That just kind of thought keeps getting in my head that maybe things are just really imbalanced. Like I ran across this story about Yellowstone where all the wolves have gotten run off at one point. This has been years ago, and they had to reintroduce the wolves because the deer were overgrazing. The beavers had dammed up the rivers to the point that it was causing big fields to turn completely
Hmm.
brown. Pretty much just all the prey animals were running amok and digging holes under the roadways and causing them to collapse. And so they reintroduced the wolves, and balance
Right.
restored. And I don't know, maybe that sounds like backwards thinking because people keep talking about how the wolves are in
No,
control. Maybe we keep getting preyed.
they
I don't
were.
know. I'm starting to think maybe it's
No,
the
they
reverse.
were.
Maybe we just need to go.
I do remember that. And sometime after that, they actually authorized people to start hunting them in the Northwest because they were too powerful. Maria D says she avoids snakes. Yeah, especially if you don't know snakes, then it's definitely best to. A lot of people do. Jimmy says he ran across a rattler on
Oh yeah,
Stone Mountain 25 plus years ago. Dalton says I nearly stepped on a black snake once while going for a pee in the woods. My mom several years ago, she stepped on a rattlesnake up near Watauga Lake, and she said she put her foot about halfway down, I think, and kind of slowly backed off of it. But yeah, that had to be kind of creepy. Spill the Tea says yikes, and yeah, animals work together on stuff. Yeah, they do. We're all part of a all part of a, I guess, a symbiosis, a large symbiosis, including human beings. We're part of nature too. And
yeah.
what's funny? B, she was pretty excited about her snake bite, and she was telling me about it. And then she as soon as she
I'm not so far
well as soon as
away.
she opened up as soon as she opened up her Facebook, right after that, she saw that a friend of hers had an encounter with a snake, and then like right after she had told me that she had got bit by a snake and she had called me, a friend of mine sent me a meme with it was Mitch McConnell hiding under Capitol Hill, and he was a turtle, but then he crawled out and he was actually just a snake disguising itself as a turtle. And then B points out that I'm wearing this shirt. So it's like snakes are everywhere today. But we got a lot of snakes around here that do lots of good things. They get rid of rodents, like you said, Tim. They keep poisonous snakes away. They're, you know, good for the ecosystem. If you got snakes, it means you have a healthy ecosystem. If you have frogs, it also means that's a sign. If with amphibians around, that's a sign of the ultimate healthy ecosystem. So sounds like you got one up there, Tim. I heard all those frogs out at your house when we were talking earlier before we got on the stream.
I got a lot of frogs, insects. Like I said, there's some black snakes. I don't really live out in the middle of nowhere. but I've got just enough woods around where I see plenty of wildlife deer. A lot of deer out in my yard and stuff. Hopefully, they're not going to run into some traffic one night, but it's probably going to
Well,
happen
you're
at
not
some
in the
point.
middle of nowhere, but your neighborhood was built into the woods like mine. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
see. I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
There's a mama deer that comes across every night, and she goes, makes some crazy noise, and my dogs. So I'll start going nuts. It's usually about 2 o'clock in the morning. Um,
Yeah, I think that's actually deer
yeah, it
because
is
I
deer.
speak a lot of different animal language. I think that's deer for
Yeah, it
fuck you,
is.
dogs.
Oh,
You
it's
ain't
so
gonna get
funny. She
me.
just stands there and turns and looks at them while they bark at her, and then she just slowly goes on her way, like they're not even there. I guess she's smart enough to figure out they can't get to her. So, um, but yeah, thought I'd mention snakes and yeah, see about y'all snake stories, and y'all
Had a
told
lot
us,
of
so thank you.
snake,
Let's
yeah, a lot of snake symbolism in your life right now. Maybe everybody's
yeah.
life, I guess.
Well, let's go to a little bit of local snakish behavior here up in Mountain City. We got the Mountain City recorder and the city clerk, both arrested for official misconduct. The Tennessee Comptroller's Office investigated these ladies. Sheila Shaw, the recorder, she's facing a charge of official misconduct, and former City Hall clerk Donna Nelson is facing charges of theft between $2,500 and $10,000, as well as official misconduct. And they're accused of an unauthorized exercise of official power and Class D felony there for the theft of $3,600. They still haven't given a lot of information on that other than that they misused their official power. So basically, probably give themselves favors using city services or something like that. I guess we'll have to see what comes out on that. But that's our first little bit of story of our local snaky behavior. And this one, I think, this one, I mean, those next ones are beyond snakes. Let's get on to this real quick. We got former Sullivan County Sheriff's Office employee accused of seeking sex with young child. This is from WCYB. Um, this guy worked out of Sullivan County Sheriff's Office. I guess he worked was a jail guard there. And if you remember, what was that show, Southern Justice, that was filmed out of Sullivan County?
Yeah,
So
I
yeah, that's
remember that.
from bringing a little more attention, unwanted attention to our area here. But John Allen Biggins is facing a federal charge of travel with the intent to engage in illicit sexual conduct. Now, this son of this guy, this pervert here, gets on the dark web, and he messages someone who he thinks is the mother of a 4-year-old child who he's intending to visit in order to engage in illicit activities to keep it friendly for YouTube there. So glad they caught the guy. He apparently admitted to the undercover agent that he had done things like this before. So at least they're getting.
That's human
Yeah.
trafficking,
It
right?
was actually the Department of Homeland Security who caught him. They were, I guess, doing some investigative stuff on the dark web and setting up a sting operation for people who were into this sort of stuff, and caught the guy. So right, I mean, they're all over the place, man. Uh, you get the idea that it can't happen here, but these people are all around you. Even when I was growing up, there was somebody who went to a church that I went to. He always seemed kind of iffy. But then it was a few years after he was actually caught trying to mess around with a teenage girl. But there was something that was off about him as a kid. I remember you telling me about a similar experience, Tim.
Who was it now?
Well, I don't want to disparage the church, and I don't remember the guy's name. They got him out of there, and he was arrested. And Maria D says, "What in the world? What's going on? Why are there so many sickos in this world these days?" I think they've always been there. I think just now they feel a lot more comfortable dropping the mask because, um,
Is it that, or is it just now that the government? Because like I know I brought this up a time or two, but since this is relevant, um, the Fed's not the only person catching these
right,
guys. If you really want to go down some dark paths, you can really subscribe to about 1,000 different channels on YouTube, if not more, and watch people just like this guy get busted every single night. And so, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, like, I think it's not because It's not necessarily because there's more of them. I think there's just people
Yeah.
catching a lot of them now. There's a lot. The world's population is really high, and now people's watching. So I think it's just really shedding a
Well,
light
that's what
on
I'm
it
saying
all.
is back then, I mean, you didn't really have ways to collect evidence on these people. Now we do, and you have people setting them up and knowing they're out there. Back then, a lot of people didn't know it was as prevalent as a problem as it was, but you still had people out there doing that. And if it did happen, probably a lot of people wouldn't even believe a child, or because they'd say, "Oh, that don't happen here," and stuff like that. And you don't you judge others through your lens of morality. So you think because you wouldn't do that, that you don't have to
Yeah,
worry about other people doing it.
yeah. I think the only reason I'm very, I guess, very in tune with a lot of the just very snaky people that are in the world is I did grow up in a really weird environment that attracted just not good people. And so it's almost like I got like a basic education on what a horrible person looks like when they're trying to fit in because the
Oh
church is a
yeah,
good place to
yeah.
do it, because nobody wants to acknowledge there's a snake among them when you're in a congregation like that. And so since they're kind of allowed to be there, as kids, you're just kind of watching these people being like, yeah, everybody knows that you're, a pedophile, but nobody's allowed to say it. And so I don't know. Maybe Maria's right. Maybe that there is like a cultural thing going on, and maybe there are more of them. Maybe I'm the naive one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who would argue that, and I think they're to some degree, where my mind went was you start thinking of things like that were considered perverse, such as dressing in drag or being gay. Those things were considered perverse just 40 years ago, 30 years ago even, and a lot of this behavior was lumped into that by people who didn't, people who didn't know gay people, didn't understand what it was. It was just something that seemed perverse to them, so they would include this kind of thing, and people were a lot less open.
It's a big one. Also. I mean, like, so I don't mean to. I don't, it's almost like I felt like I was trying to get offended somebody, but like the LGBT, a group that I'm not even a part of. I mean, I've been watching them. Like, by and large, they're not happy that the maps are trying to include
Yeah.
themselves in that community. So it's almost like I really feel like we should stop like even making that
Well, that's what
comparison.
we're going to
Like,
get into tonight.
decide you want another person of the same sex. Man, that's a giant leap of what we would
Yeah.
consider taboo. When you're talking about this police officer who's trying to get with a
Yeah.
four
No,
year
I'm
old,
not. And
like that's not even the same. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying like that seems to be something that we do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
no, no, I
accusing you
see.
of. I know you're not homophobic. I'm just saying the LGBT does not seem to be very accepting by and large of these child
No, and
rapists.
we're going to talk about a
I guess
group
that's
called
what
Gays Against Groomer here in a little while. Um,
that's yeah. I just don't feel like that gets
yeah.
brought up enough, and I think it's because it's politicized, but it's not very accepted on either side. It's just being weaponized
Well,
as
well,
all.
what I was kind of getting around at is though is these people in the 1980s, it was all considered perverse to a lot larger portion of the population. So when these people who commit these sort of horrible acts with kids, they see, or who are even interested in it, they see the widespread acceptance of another group that was once considered perverse, and I think they feel more comfortable with not putting it right out there because none of them still want anybody to know about it. But I think in engaging in the behavior, they feel more comfortable because they feel like somebody. It's just a more open space for it nowadays. But
We don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but can I give a
sure,
name that people can look up if they really want to know just how prevalent this is in
sure.
society? Go Google the name Amos Yee, Amosyee, and it's a tale of people really supporting somebody because they thought that they were. I don't know, just go look it up. It ends up being a really
Can you
weird
say it again,
story.
please? Okay,
Amos Yee, Amos, and the last name
okay.
Yee. Yeah, it's a really weird story, but I think just like I know I refer to the furry community a lot, the maps are here to stay too, and that's troublesome.
Well, I mean
you know,
they've been around since time itself, and it's one of those things where it happens to young people, and then they grow up and perpetuate the cycle if they're not, intercepted in time and given counseling or whatever it is that they need to.
it's called galvanizing. or golemization. I'm wanting to say it's called. It's where it's the big stone clay
Mm-hmm.
creature. Like it programs it. It's kind of like the Dr. Caligari closet
It's like a
monster.
zombie made of mud.
And yeah, it's the idea that it only knows how to hurt other things because that's what it was
Mm-hmm.
done to it. And it's the analogy of like PTSD victims in psychology. Like the only reason people do really bad things is you have like a tri-path, or well, more than that. But if you really want to base it down, you can either rage against whoever victimized you, uh, ascend, or you can go the darker path, which is kind of, what is it, familiarize yourself, or start to identify with the aggressor. And that's where that sort of thing comes from, where, well, this was done to me, it's only fair that I get to
Yeah.
do it too. It's like voluntary psychosis that comes into like this real deviant behavior.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Unfortunately, we've got another one here. A Virginia high school teacher arrested for grooming, asking for nude photos from teen. He apparently gave a secret cell phone to a 16-year-old boy and was giving him rides home and requested nude photographs from him. And the mother of the boy says that she believed he was grooming her son for sexual activity. So I mean, it doesn't sound like that she believed that. It sounds like that's what was going on. If they arrested for him, he said he cooperated in discussing allegations with deputies and admitted to providing a cell phone and requesting nude photographs from the boy. So he wasn't. I mean, her mom doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
The kid's mom doesn't think he was possibly grooming her son for sexual activity. That's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, it's by
Yeah.
definition.
And a lot of people are there's been a discussion in um, on the online communities the other day. Sean says yes, he follows Gays Against Groomers. Um, Maria says she's going to look up Mr. Yee after the show. Um, but well, I lost my train of thought there for a second when I went to the chat. Um, oh yeah,
You said that a lot of people seem
yeah,
to think.
a lot of people, a lot of discussion has been in the online community that people are just accusing gay people and trans people of grooming children because they happen to be school teachers or whatever, and it's not about that anybody doesn't believe in your right to exist or anything like that. It's stuff like this that we're going to watch. This is from Libs of TikTok Twitter account. There's a lot of people that are saying that there's not grooming going on, that this is a right wing conspiracy, that this is just something people are making up because they're homophobic and transphobic. But I mean, there's clear evidence. If you can follow the Libs of TikTok Twitter account, they post it every day. But I just want to give you a quick example. This is a few minutes long. I hope you'll be able to hear this, Tim. If not, you may need to follow on the stream for just a minute while I play this. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. So let me make sure that the folks out there in radio land can hear this. I think they can, and I think you should be able to too, Tim. I think I've actually got that little problem fixed. But let's see here. Sorry, folks. All right, here we go.
Hey, they can't even hear
Okay,
it on the stream.
let me fix that. Sorry, folks. I don't know what's up with that. Whoop.
Hey, they can't even hear it on the
Okay.
stream.
Maria says can't hear.
Good. I feel like a redneck frame.
Just a second. I'll get it. Let's try this. Let me play it and see if it comes through here.
Jimmy has
Hey,
joined
Jimmy.
the chat.
Yeah, it's not picking it up. That's weird.
You should like mime over top of it with your own voice.
All right. Let me try something else here. Because it's playing and for some reason it's not picking it up. What if I do this?
Oh. full weird OBS weird thing
Yeah,
just
oh, hang
appeared on
on.
mine.
I'm trying to see if I stopped my virtual camera to where you couldn't see me, but it's not helping. Well, I'm just going to have to give you the heads up. I'll show you here. You can look at it.
Just put it in the link.
There you go.
Uh, link what you've got right there and put it in the chat. That way they can look it up after
Well,
the
you
show if
can.
they want to.
It actually has the words on it right here. But she's basically telling that she's a newly non-binary teacher. And she goes on to talk about how she went to school and she sent out an email to all her colleagues about how she would like to go and share her story and read. There was a book she read about, I forget the name of the book. Let me back up here and find it. It's backwards here. I just read They, She, He, Me, Free to these children. And she's going into them, first grade students, and explaining to them all these tenets of gender ideology. And these children, I mean, adults have a hard time understanding gender ideology who don't feel it. So I don't know why that you would think that it would be something that's easy for children to understand. But she goes in and she talks about how she makes it easy for them to accept somebody because they were taught it with love. And then they have a first grader who was a little boy who comes out as trans. And she does say she spoke to his parents, but after she read this book to them. And then she goes to it a couple other students, and then she talks about how she had a talk with them and has people come out as trans, and then she gets so, you can tell the way she is. It's not just that it's, oh, it's okay, we still love you anyway. It's, oh, you're so stunning and brave, and this is, everybody celebrate this person being who they are. And I don't have a problem with celebrating being who people are, but when you're giving people ideas of who they should be and what kind of person that will get them the acceptance that they crave, you're basically showing them a way to get acceptance without actually having to do anything. And it's encouraged, really, is what it is, by somebody like this. So I don't know what you could call it other than grooming. And for this lady, she came out as non-binary last year, right? So it took her whole life to come to that decision. And what's wrong with a kid growing up and deciding that? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. This lady came to it on her own. She didn't need anybody coming to school and reading her a book about it. If you really feel that way, it's acceptable to come out now and be who you are. It's not like it was in the 1970s. So you don't have to go around basically explaining every all this to little kids. If they grow up and they decide that's who they are, they're going to be accepted by society. But now it's that they're encouraged to do that. That's my issue with it. Spill the Tea says, if you're grown and feel that way, I'll respect it, but don't involve the kids. They need to play and learn and make these choices, and learn not to make these choices they'll probably regret. And that's another thing that I was going to get into, is they're not just encouraging them to come out as trans. When they get to a certain age, they're encouraging them to go to use puberty blockers and to have their breasts removed. I mean, I just think that's wrong. Now, if you give children a medication to stop them from going through puberty, they don't know that it's reversible. They say it is, but they don't know. They've just started giving these drugs a few years ago, so they're telling them that, oh, you can just stop taking them whenever you want, and then you'll go through puberty. Well, they don't know that. And then to have a double mastectomy, they're doing it on children as young as 13, and there's some of them on 15 and 16-year-old kids. And I had an article pulled up here about just that, and it is gone. But it was basically that the FDA, they don't allow teenage girls to get breast implants because they know that there's no long-term studies on it, for one, and that the body's not done developing yet, for two, so it's not safe to do that. But on the same website from the FDA, they say that a double mastectomy can be part of gender-affirming care. And then you have Rachel Levine the Health and Human Health and Human Services Secretary, who was the first trans admiral of Health and Human Services, an admiral, and going around in an admiral uniform talking about on the national scale how Health and Human Services from the United States should be encouraging all this stuff, encouraging people to get gender affirming studies in states where it might not be allowed. Sean says, I don't get non-binary. Isn't what's considered binary just someone else's opinion? What about Miss Jane Hathaway and Ellie Mae Clampett? They were not at all typical feminine women. No, they weren't. Spill the tea all over me says, I don't understand any of it. And Sean says, it's never been explained to me, but people just freak out if you just don't know what it means. Yeah, I'll be honest. It doesn't make sense to me. I see what they say. They say that they don't feel like they're man or woman. But I think I said this on an episode. If you're non-binary, then that means everybody else is binary. So you've just put yourself in another binary.
I think non-binary means they mix it or they can go back and forth, because I've seen I think it's more to do with feminine versus masculine. I'm trying to speak. I almost feel like I'm trying to speak for them without trying to judge it, so you have another way of looking at it. But I don't understand it because I'm not. But I think it has something to do with more of how feminine versus masculine somebody's feeling that day or something. But I could be completely wrong. I'm just trying to define it.
I think it just boils down to that they don't feel like either any of the time, or they don't feel like either all the time. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with that lady feeling, or that person feeling that she's not a man or a woman. That's up to her to decide how she feels. But to encourage children to act on their whims of things that they don't understand, I think is just irresponsible at best and abusive at worst. Sean says, if that's a 4-star general, I'm Melania Trump. Hey, Sean, send me some pictures. Let's see. It's telling you about the Gays Against Groomers group here, and since you can't listen, I'm not going to play in the videos because I can't get it to work. But if you follow them on Twitter, it's @AgainstGroomers, and these are the people that Tim was talking about who are pointing out that, hey, we don't want these people grouped into us. The groomers and the pedos and the nasty people are trying to associate themselves with gays, like I said, because gays have been accepted. So they feel like if they can grab onto those coattails and get their little collar on that trans flag, then they can be pulled into mainstream society and accepted. And Gays Against Groomers are a group of gay people who've decided that they are not going to stand by and be associated with these people, and that they're also going to do what they can to put an end to this kind of behavior. If every little bit helps. So, all right, now that we're over, what's that?
Maria's asking a question that I think you'd be interested in.
Maria says, have you and Tim seen any programs of people who regret hormones to sex change? Yeah, they often wake up depressed and wish they never did and want to change back. Yeah, unfortunately, Maria, we can't even talk about that on YouTube. But that's out there. I can't go really into any more detail than that, or they'll say it's transphobic and pull it down. If somebody discovers it later, it's not going to happen automatically. But just to see our discussion not get pulled down. But yeah, I've seen that in bigger live streamers who've talked about that, and they have had have gotten hateful content strikes for it. Spill the Tea says, I just watched a video on a girl that has changed and now changing back. Yeah, if you haven't watched, oh no worries, Maria. We're just not. That's fine. I just don't. That is out there. We just don't want to really get into it anymore because of their policy. We do need to get on other platforms though, so we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Blair White's a conservative conservative trans woman. She's on YouTube and Twitter and has detransitions on. Okay, so yeah, it's a little different for her. But Blair, the funny thing, okay, like Blair lives as a woman. She was born as a man, but I have no problem calling her she because she actually looks and acts like a woman. But I feel like a lot of the drag queen story hours, not regular trans people, but a lot of the drag queens that you see in public are more of like a costume, a mockery of femininity, more than they are actually trying to be feminine. What do you think?
I've actually seen. I'm trying to remember who the interview was that I watched, but it was some people who had successfully transitioned, but they were not happy with the
Mm-hmm.
trans movement simply because of the way they were marketing it to people. That it's like not something you need to be marketing, is what their argument was. Like if you know you are something, you are going to go find the results that you need. Whereas like you don't need to walk into a classroom and give them answers like that they're not. You don't need to go give people answers that they're not looking for. Essentially, was their argument. And but yeah, there are plenty of trans people at this point that are kind of speaking up and saying, "Hey, look, the existence of something is no reason to justify over marketing it to people because it's such a
Yeah.
regrettable thing. You know, it's not like we're changing your hair color. You
I,
know, or you're going to have a few gay experiences that you might be able to forget. It's a pretty big thing to cut your dick off. You know,
yeah,
so
it's a choice that you got to live with for the rest of life, and a lot of times they oversell it according to some people who have been through through the thing. Uh, Sean says, yeah, she gets lots of trouble for it for talking about Blair White, and yeah, she's flawless. She see Blair hasn't had bottom surgery and says that she never would. But it's not about, and it's not just because Blair is pretty and actually looks like a pretty woman. It's it's because I believe that person genuinely feels that way and doesn't seem to be making a mockery of it. If you do that, if you just live as a woman, I don't think a lot of people have a problem with it. It just shouldn't be promoted among children, as Maria says. If you grow up and that's what you're into, fine. You'll find your way there. You don't need somebody coming to your classroom leading you, holding your hand. You found your all you. If you're trans or gay out there, you found your way, and it was far less acceptable then than it is now. So just let kids come to it on their own. Don't lead them. They'll be there if that's what they're into, if that's who they are. Maria says, "Oh yeah, I just read that one." Spill the tea says it's like a phase or program that some snap out of. I just don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I think I fully believe there are people with gender dysmorphia who really do feel like they're in the wrong body, but I think that's a very small percentage of the population, and that a lot of the growth in that population or people identifying that way comes from the promotion and encouragement of it, and the way you're treated as a hero, or for having the guts to come out as who you are, and then on top of that, there's the grooming with, oh you feel like a little girl, okay, well let's go get you some pretty dresses and paint your fingernails, not like okay well that's cool, you know what just let the kids. You don't have to necessarily encourage that. Like if you're a dinosaur, you can. If your kid's a dinosaur, you can say, "Well, show me how you dinosaur." Okay, so you can encourage them without actually. You don't have to take them out and buy them a dinosaur.
you're talking about we going from trans to what do they call them? Otherkin? Do you know
Yeah,
what that is?
tell us about it.
An otherkin? Okay. This is a I don't know how if we can even group these two things together in the same thing, but like it's not what's coming down the pipeline for people that aren't in the know, I guess, because it is fairly mainstream at this point. There's a lot of people who are coming up into the world who aren't identifying as the opposite sex or non-binary. They're identifying as like sea
Hmm.
serpent and werewolf and dragon. And I'm saying it with a smile on my face, and I'm not at all kidding because that's what that's they're called. They call themselves otherkins, and you get people that really believe that they're fairies and vampires. And I mean, I don't want to go too far down a psychological rant, but there's an episode of a Little Bill that came on Cartoon Network a long time ago that I always thought was interesting when I watched. I just always remember this episode for some reason, and Little Bill was pretending to be a dog, and his mom was okay with it all day long. I showed him go to the grocery store, and she entertained it as he was like rolling around the floor and jumping on the bottom of the buggy. From my memory, I've not watched this in
Right.
30 years. And then, but by the time I want to say maybe they went to the post office, and everybody's like, "Ha ha, ma'am, you've got a funny little dog there." But by the time it got for him to get to, I think it was like the diner that they were at. She was like, no, dogs eating the floor and they only get puppy chow. So if you want to be a little boy again, I need you to get up in your seat. And
Yeah.
he snapped out of it and got up there and ate his hamburger, got his
Yeah.
ice cream. And it's like, I feel like a big part of this stuff is not necessarily the kid's fault.
Exactly.
It's strange, neglectful parenting that just kind of puts up a strange behavior that eventually blooms into a very odd flower that they just don't know how to get control of because it's
And
too late. That's where these
I
Christians
think it's
come
also
from.
sort of similar to the Munchausen by proxy, where a mother well, it's usually a mother, but I guess it could be a father too, would pretend that her child was sick in order to get attention from it, and then in some cases, they would actually make the child sick so that it could pass for the doctor. Whether it's poison them or
Have you seen the Gypsy Rose
what's that?
saga? Do you know about that? The latest example of Munchausen's was they made a Hulu saga out of it. There was a girl named Gypsy Rose, and essentially her mom made it like she was a cancer. I don't remember what she was supposedly had, but like she made her believe she was sick her whole life, and eventually one day she just ran away because she was having to plan all this stuff out. Like her mom had set up like fake charities to keep them funded, and it's that's something else. If anybody wants to like it, look that up because that's too big of a story for us to talk about. The Hulu series is really annoying. Don't bother with it. Just go look up a YouTube video on it. But look up Gypsy Rose, and it's a great example of Munchausen syndrome. As a woman wanted her daughter to be terminally ill, so she didn't essentially didn't have to
Well,
work.
well, just like with that,
Yeah, and never told the daughter that she wasn't terminally ill. She just kind of went along with it because she was always told
and
she was dying.
just like that phenomenon of people who are getting attention from sick children, parents can get attention from having a trans children, especially amongst people in the more socially progressive, we'll call it just to be friendly to them, circles. That that's a good way to get attention in those. And oh look, my daughter's trans, and oh, you're so brave. That must be so hard for you. Uh, you know, um, so the parents of them definitely get a lot of attention, and it makes them feel like their child is special. Maybe their child, maybe they're searching for meaning in themselves, and they can that's some way they find it. But whatever the reason, like Sean says up here, let me catch up on the chat. Sean says, when I was about 5, I told everyone I used to be a girl, but I died in a well. If I was 4 now, maybe I'd be on hormones. My parents downplayed it. My dad bought me troll dolls that I played with, but it was a phase, and it passed. And yeah, and that's what I say. He also says, now I'm 5'3". When I'm around city gays, they always think I'm a trans man. I always think it's hysterical. But he makes a good point there, and I've made the point on the show before. What is wrong with being an effeminate little boy? Maybe you're going to grow up to be gay, maybe you're not. What is wrong with being a masculine little girl or a tomgirl? There's nothing wrong with being a masculine woman. Maybe you're going to grow up to be a lesbian. How do you know? They're children. It's too early to try to even try to even push them in one direction or another. Maybe by the time that they grow up, they're totally different. Like Sean said, he thought he was a girl when he was a 4-year-old, and I've talked to people who thought they were who wanted to be a dinosaur, who thought they were a monkey or whatever. I mean, my little brother was Superman for a while, and he'd try to fly off and stuff. Um, so,
Do you think it's like something like we're getting like I know I don't want to derail the chat and start talking too much about Rudolph Steiner and stuff like that, but like where they speak about the great spirits that rule everything, the difference of Lucifer and Ahriman, and how during the reign of what is known as the spirit of Lucifer, which is I guess is biblical too, but they look at Lucifer and the Theosophy group as more of a like almost like a hive mind spirit that takes over everybody, and we get lost in it. And I feel like if there was an age of Lucifer and you describe Lucifer as
mhm.
fantasy, I mean, we're spearheading right into the world of fantasy because nobody wants just reality. Everybody wants something else
Oh,
to be
Sean was
true.
saying he used
Everybody
to
is.
be a girl. Sorry, he didn't think he was a girl. Didn't mean to misrepresent you there. Didn't mean to dead name you, Sean.
Um,
Um, but, but yeah, that's an interesting point, Tim. Finish it, please.
All right, trying to read the chat with one eye closed.
You were
What was I
talking
saying?
about the pervading sentiment from Steiner and how it was.
Oh yeah. Like I just feel like we're like
Yeah,
stuck in fantasy. I feel like that's where we're at. Where like people really think that and like I don't mean to shame people, but like you got to understand like that like there's a difference between allowing yourself to be healthily happy with some nostalgia, or maybe like healthily attracted to a little bit of silliness. Because if you don't allow some silliness in your life, then you get
sure.
cold, and then it's not enjoyable. But like you probably don't need to be wearing your fur tail to work if you were, you know what I'm saying? There's a time and a place for everything, and I really think like if unless you work at GameStop, you should probably take your Spider-Man shirt off and put like a grown-up shirt on. I mean, like, why do you need to be in that phase all the time? Like, why can't you come home and then turn into Captain Funko? That's fine when you're at home. I just don't understand like why everybody has to bring that thing that they love so much into every aspect of their life that it's annoying to everyone around
Well,
them.
and so many
Like, none of those groups have to be annoying the hell out of each other.
and so many people use kind of it's kind of become more commonplace now to use your kink in place of a personality, and I think some of it may be that too. People don't have meaning. They don't get enough attention for who they are, and they feel like they need to have something else to give people. Hey, let's move on before it gets too late.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, you got a bunch of
okay.
there you might want to
Yeah,
read.
we got a few
Don't
more
know what-
stories I want to go through, so we'll try to move on from this part of the discussion, but I think it's been a good one. I appreciate y'all joining us in it. If you have anything else to add, just throw it right up here in the chat. Oh yeah, we did miss a lot here. Let's see. I'm gonna have to open up YouTube because I can't even see all this. Let me do that right quick.
Yep.
Hopefully I can see the chat. Da, da, da. Can you see him, Tim? The chat's...
Tell me what's the last thing you... And I'll just start reading them to you.
Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. Plus shooting.
Yeah, for some reason your OBS jacks the chats up.
Yeah, I'm missing one from Maria, I think, here. Oh, she must be talking about the show. She said, plus she didn't want her daughter to grow up and leave. Yeah, talking about the woman with Munchausen. AO, welcome to the stream. A trans child is like a vegan cat. It's not the cat making decision. My granddaughter goes from dinosaur to cat to fish back to little girl all in the course of a day. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I actually saw a woman. I think she was in Georgia. She was charged with homicide for feeding her baby a vegan diet, and it died of malnutrition. But I've heard of people doing that with a cat too, that they actually really have tried to feed a cat a vegan diet, and you can't do that.
Seems pretty unnatural.
Maria says to AO, that's hilarious, talking about his granddaughter going from a dinosaur to cat to fish to little girl back in the course of a day. Spill the Tea says, oh, please, I do love Steiner. And Sean says, maybe it was reincarnation. Thank you for those chats, folks. We're going to move on to the next part of the discussion. We're going to look real quick. We got Tennessee. We got 10 cases of monkeypox in Tennessee. That's right, 10 cases of monkeypox in Tennessee. And you've got the media kind of like trying to slowly freak out on it somehow. I mean, I don't understand really what they're doing, because they're not really doing the panic like with the coronavirus panic, but it is like they're trying to build up like it is something you could be scared of, but at the same time they're also telling you that it's really only being contracted from gay sex. So let's see, let me find this tweet, because I could say this, but this tweet that I have here was so good at putting it. Well, shit. Yeah, go ahead.
While you're bringing that up, I have to ask. Sean says, back up to the top, I used to be a girl, and now Maria D. here says, sounds like it was a past life coming through, and I would like some, I don't know, I'm interested in that, like, some clarity, because all those chats are zipping up through there now. I'm hearing past lives and Sean quoting used to be a girl and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm interested in what they're talking about.
Okay. Well, here's what I was going to talk about monkeypox. And we're seeing they're popping up cases all over the country, and people are saying, making videos. I saw a TikTok of a lady. She was laying out and she had sores on her face, and she's like, and they're not doing a shutdown, and now I have monkeypox. And Inez Stepman here on Twitter says, the monkeypox baseline is worth noting. Visiting your grandpa in the hospital wasn't essential, but the idea that people would give up orgies for public health purposes is apparently unthinkable. And yeah, the point she's making is you don't see the CDC saying, skip a few trips to the bathhouse so you don't get monkeypox. They're saying, oh, we may have to look at a lockdown. Everybody look out. This is the signs of monkeypox, and this is going to be the next pandemic because we didn't learn our lesson from COVID. So just thought that was worth noting. Remember, we looked at monkeypox several episodes ago when it first started coming on the radar, and it's just built since then. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more of it. But let's go now to, we've been talking about the environmental agenda and how a lot of that stuff has been affecting Europe. Today we've got President Biden, so-called President Biden. My message today is loud and clear. Since Congress is not acting on the climate emergency, I will. And in the coming weeks, my administration will begin to announce a climate emergency. Yeah, so he says in the coming weeks, his administration will begin to announce executive actions to combat this emergency. So who knows what the hell that'll be. But what didn't the Supreme Court just rule that you can't just legislate stuff like that through the EPA and the executive branch? You actually have to have Congress do that. But looks like Biden's going to be going on anyway. Well, I mean, what's he doing? You're going to do an emergency executive action because it's hot in the summer? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I guess you don't know this, but as I can,
it's clouds, Jack.
Speak
what
for the massive orgy world,
yeah.
As I only participate in orgies when
right.
they're massive.
What's the point
Those
otherwise?
orgies, if there's not 56 people or more, I'm not even interested. There's not a chance that someone could die of suffocation, what's the point? High risk only. And adding monkeypox to the mix only makes me want to do it more because it's now high risk, and you can only do that when it's about 88 degrees outside.
I was going to say, you must test positive for monkeypox before admittance.
Yeah, well, didn't you? Man, that brings us back to think you talked about bug chasers the other day. I wonder if there's anybody out there like looking for that rare Pokemon of the bug world. Would be that. Hey,
we're going to get into that on when we talk, because I do want to talk. You've talked about the Ferdum a lot, and I want to share some of those posts that I was showing you about the Ferdum just popping up. But let's get into that another night. Maybe like.
Oh God! Don't the bug chasers and the Ferdum don't deploy that bad.
Well. Okay, no, I guess it is different things. Oh, yeah, when you said that, I was thinking of bugs. But yeah, I remember what you're talking about, people who were trying to get diseases. Yeah, sorry, my brain went somewhere else.
Disease chasers. Yeah, disease chasers. I'm just wondering if monkeypox is like the rarest Pokemon for them to catch,
Probably so. All right, well, guess what today is? July 20th, 1969. 53 years ago, that's when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin touched down in the Sea of Tranquility on the moon, if that's what you think, I happen to believe that there's some really fishy stuff about all that, and we need to get into that, but y'all go watch, there's a movie called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. We talked about this in one of the first episodes, and we never did get into it, but now I really wanted to do it when we had more of an audience, and we really didn't at the time, at least that participated in the chat with us and stuff. So I do want to do that. So if y'all check that movie out, The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It's on YouTube. You'll kind of have to search for it a little bit. I'll try to throw this up in the description afterwards. It's because it's you'll have to go down the page just a little bit in the search results, but it was on there at least a few months ago. But A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, if we want to get into that. But yeah, today is the 53rd anniversary of when it officially happened, and that discussion's way too long to get into now, so just going to commemorate that, and I'm going to go on to this next story about how the United States has a new UFO capital. The United States is starting to take extraterrestrial sightings more seriously. There was an actual meeting at the Pentagon where top officials discussed all the footage from high-ranking military personnel finding UFOs. Now, this is from Giant Freaking Robot, written by James Brazula. Oops.
That's the name of the site.
Yeah.
Freaking Robot.
And it got it from Microsoft, so it's an accredited news source according to Bill Gates. But according to this, they're seeing a lot of According to this, they're seeing a lot of UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called, unexplained aerial phenomenon, because I guess they're not technically flying all the time, but they're seeing the highest amount of them in Washington. They're seeing 88 sightings per 100,000 residents. And there's a couple other, like Vermont, that are pretty close to that, 87. California actually had the most, had 15,000 times, or 15,280 times people saw a UFO last year. But they only managed 38.95 sightings per 100,000 residents, because California's freaking huge.
You think it has anything to do with light pollution because there's so much desert out there?
I don't know.
Like, you know, if you go out in California, there's a lot of deserts, so there's no
Yeah,
light pollution. Versus other places where if you're like a city, like I don't know, if you know, some of these cities, you could literally fly a UFO with no camouflage right over, and they'd never see you anyway because there's so many bright lights that block
true.
everything out. And so I'm just
Well, they
wondering,
saw the
like
Phoenix
out in
lights
the
though.
desert, you can see everything. That's true, but they were
Yeah, yeah,
huge,
but
right?
yeah, you're right. You
Uh,
make a good point, and and also, like California's got a lot of desert, and they've got a lot of forest and a lot of stuff up in the northern California that's a lot of empty land, and just like Washington, which is right there nearby. So, and then Vermont's another pretty dark place, so that may have something to do with it. It may just be easier to see there. Um, I went from from that. I was going to show you. I wanted to make a crayon drawing of Elon Musk riding a rocket to Mars, but the AI would not. It would not oblige me there. So we just got pictures of Elon with a burnt face here in front of Mars and a couple of rockets. So it wasn't as cool as I hoped it would be. Um, but let's look. The last story, the last news story that I want to get into. Um, oh, let me save that for the last. So
you got plenty of people up there to commenting
okay,
on you.
well let me check that. I got something in my ear right now. Let me figure out what this is.
Is it an earwig? Is it in your
One of these
brain?
tabs was playing a video in the background.
You
All right.
want to give me an ear? You're gonna start. Woo, get it out.
It got spiritualists say we lived many lives, says Maria D, and could be born either sex. So if I was a man in the past life as a child, it might be something I remember. Just clarifying. Yeah, totally possible. You ever seen Cloud Atlas? That's a good. Um, it's a
I wonder
it's a
about that.
good. I guess it's like a child's example of the idea behind it. So it's an introduction to that idea. I wouldn't necessarily say a child's example, but an introduction to that idea. Pretty decent movie. Really good book. Spill the tea all over me says I had a psychic reading. She said I was a pirate. I would not steal. I would steal, but not rape or kill. I don't know. I have no memories. Ooh, so you had like a past life regression. That's cool. I'd be interested to do that. But then I might, they might have me. Uh, who knows what they might make you do? Hypnotize you and go out in public and do something embarrassing.
Find out your
Yeah.
gerbils.
Yeah. No, you have to carry that guilt with you and atone for it for the rest of your life. Jimmy says, and hear them tell it we had the tech to go through the Van Allen belt, but lost the tech. Right? Yeah, that's what they said. We did. We had the tech to go through it. They also lost all the telemetry data. They recorded over the original videos. A whole lot of stuff. Watch that movie. Jimmy Brooks, Maria D says she was thinking the same thing as you. She said she had a huge sighting in '97. She'll tell us all sometimes. Yeah, we need to have a UFO video. We did one several months ago, but we need to do that again. Hey, while
Hey, while we got some people that are talking UFOs, just put it out there that maybe we could get see if Golf can get Norris to come back on, and if everybody wanted to pre-write out any UFO experience that they had, and then tell us about it,
well,
that would
that's
be really
funny.
cool. We've never had anybody tell us about it because I've never had UFO
Well,
sighting
that's
that I
funny
know of.
that you mentioned that because Jonathan is actually coming on the show this weekend. We're going to be talking Star Wars and parallels to real life in that series of movies and shows. And Jonathan is about the biggest Star Wars expert I know. We were talking in the last stream about Nerf herders, and I thought, well, what a better time to have something a little bit more lighthearted and to have Jonathan on, and let's get into some Star Wars and let's look at some of the allegories that connect that world to our that galaxy far far away in a long time ago to ours. And Spill the Tea says no, just sit there, no hypnosis. Berkeley Psychic Institute. I took some aura classes. Okay, cool. Well, that's something I'd like to hear about too. I've done some reading on stuff like that, like the Monroe Institute. I'm sure you know Spill the Tea about that if you got into Berkeley Psychic Institute. Um, so at some point I'd like to get into that. And I also found several years ago when I got back into conspiracies, because like I went I really figured them out probably that there was something to a lot of this stuff back in about 2006. It started with 9/11 and the Kennedy assassination, kind of the same thing that a lot of people get led down this rabbit hole through. But one of the things I came across when I after so much time, I kind of went back to sleep because it was like there's not really anything. I felt like there wasn't really anything I could do about it. I was just watching it go by, and it was just kind of getting so boring, and it was so in my face that I kind of just went back to sleep again. But then in 2017, when that shooting happened in Vegas, it was like boom, bucket of cold water on the head. Oh yeah, this is all real. They gotta start paying attention. So I dove like deep into conspiracy stuff, and I found some declassified documents by the CIA on some of the stuff that was going on with programs that they were running that were very similar to what they were doing at the Monroe Institute, and they definitely believed that this stuff was working. Maria says, "I wish I could see auras. I've seen them before. I can't see them all the time, but sometimes yeah, it's like a sense that's almost visual. I wouldn't call it that you see them, but I think maybe you're sensing it at a different part of your perception, but your body doesn't really know how to communicate that to you, so you maybe almost see it, kind of. That's the best way I know how to describe that phenomenon. But I usually when it's when somebody's radiating a pretty intense feeling that I tend to see that. But here, let's we're right at an hour, so let's go ahead and get finished up for tonight. Um, let's look at. I was going to show you that I showed you the Elon picture because we were talking about going to the moon, but let's look at this Elon picture here. Well, here's the first one here. Here's Elon when it comes to Bitcoin. Bought high and sold low. There's the shot and there's the chaser. But let's look at this picture of Elon right here. Sin says, never in my life has I seen a physique like this. And I agree. What the hell is that? What is that? You ever seen a person shaped like that? That's strange. It's not like he's fat, but his chest is as wide as his shoulders. Chest to back. That's a strange physique.
You've not looked at Neuralink's latest product. It's the NeuroChest, or chest expander. He's worried about taking a bullet. So it's a fake chest, big steel plate under there. Heart expander. I don't know. That is a weird body, I gotta say. Unless that's maybe a photo, like a weird angle or something
I
like
don't
that,
know.
maybe.
Looks strange. I thought you were going to tell me he was from Mars. But
Well, I was trying not to take up too much time, as you said, he's an hour in, but yeah, they're from
Laurel talking
Mars.
about
I mean,
hemisync.
like,
Yes, exactly what I'm talking about, Laurel. Thank you.
what is
Hemisync.
that?
We'll have to get into it another time. It's too much to get into right now. But kind of what I was talking.
We can get into it. I have a theory that we'll talk about after we hang up here because I'm not even sure I want to go into
Okay.
it too much, but I'll be able to talk about auras on a level. Catch me up on the chats here real quick before I continue,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'll let you.
Spill the tea's talking about Berkeley Psychic
Second.
Institute. She says go to the website. They have online classes through Zoom. And Ao says, yes, I feel auras. I can only describe it as feeling colors, and that's a good way to put it because the orange auras are usually the ones that I feel most overtly, or that I can almost see. I mean, I swear it's like you can see it, but it's not really visual. I don't really know a better way to describe that one I already did. Maria says she'll check it out. Spill the tea. Sean says, is he with Obama? No, it does kind of look like it though. I thought that too when I first saw it.
I thought that first. I just didn't say anything.
Yeah, no, it does. Silver hair, dark skin, thin man, with the same cut of his jawline there as Obama.
Well, I'm looking at it from my phone here. When I saw it, I guess now that I'm looking at it on my computer screen, it looks more like that Gus guy from Breaking
It kind of
Bad.
looks like George Clooney and Obama had a baby.
We could do that with like CRISPR. See if I can get on that one.
All right. Well, here the last story that I wanted to go into. I closed the story because it was playing a video, but I just wanted to point out that we had in Indiana, where we just had the story of the guy saving the children there in Lafayette, Indiana. There was a mall in Indiana where a psychopath attempted to carry out a mass shooting. He did actually kill 3 people, but we had a young man, Elijah. Let me find this guy real quick. Elijah Dickin. He's a 22-year-old young man who was a concealed carrier. They had just recently passed a constitutional carry, which allowed people to carry without a permit in Indiana, and that's why Elijah was able to carry that day legally. Now, the mall had a rule against carrying, but as we saw, the shooter who went in there did not follow that rule. So it's a good thing that Elijah didn't either. So y'all stay strapped. There's a lot of crazy people out there, but know what you're doing. Be proficient with it like Elijah. He took down the killer from 40 yards away, where they say 30 to 40 yards away. That's an impressive distance with a handgun. A lot of people shoot handguns at like 7 yards. Um, it's this guy. He acted cool and calm and collected. He pushed his girlfriend out of the way so she wasn't hurt. It closed the distance a little bit to the shooter, and he pulled out his weapon. He fired 10 shots at him, hit him with 8, killed him right there. Then he holstered his gun, turned himself into mall security, and stayed around. So hero Elijah. Let me find this picture here of this guy so we can show you what a true hero looks like we did last week on Sunday when we looked at Nick Bostic, who helped those kids out of that burning building as he drove by. And here is 22-year-old Elijah. And I just feel like that there's too much. There are many occasions where a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy, and I'm not talking about police. I'm talking about an armed citizen who's just happens to be carrying and helps his fellow man, his fellow woman when something happens. Sean, I don't know what the chats are talking about here, but I think they're talking to each other.
Are they
so Maria says, "Well,
Elon's
yeah,
body?
yeah, that must be what they're talking about." Yeah.
Elon's body. Just think that was all up on that Amber Heard there for a short bit.
What's that?
So maybe that was just karma. Amber Heard took a dump on Johnny Depp's bed, but she had to sleep with that weird body at one point. So maybe it was just PTSD. She felt like she needed to punish all males for having to do that.
I think you figured it out. Renee Nate.
If anybody wants to know the history of the Elon Musk family and the Martians, as they were, they need to start from episode 1 of the Thundercats.
All right. Yeah.
I'm just going to start saying that with a straight face, and maybe people will make that documentary for me.
You've been telling that a lot. You've got the DVDs or the Blu-rays. You need to let me borrow that so I know what you're talking about. Actually, no, I think they're on Tubi, so you don't need to let me borrow them. I'll just watch it on there. They got G.I. Joe seasons 1 and 2 too.
I also want to do Conan the Barbarian.
I just watched that recently.
Because there's a big, it's on Tubi, but it's leaving in 14 days. There's a big movement right now for that. Have you heard the conspiracy about Tartaria? Do you know what that is?
Lemuria and Tartaria and the pre-Atlantean civilizations.
Yeah, and I think whether it's true or not, I like to eat the crazy pills and really follow it down, just find out where it takes me. I think the biggest, if all that stuff's true, I think the biggest misconception that they're making that those people were good guys. You know what I'm saying?
The Tartarians. Okay.
Yeah, like it was some ancient fallen empire where everything was perfect, and all these great things were happening. And I think that's very naive to always look back at things we don't know. And I bet it was, because Conan the Barbarian it comes right out with that scene where his dad's telling him that back in the day the land was ruled by giants, and how the only reason they had steel was because after the giants had all killed each other, we went to the battlefield and got it for ourselves. And he was saying, just remember, when you hold this steel, that giants made this, and we were just men. And I kind of look at that like it seems pretty evident, whether you believe in whatever happened religiously or not, that there was a big flood at some point and it killed everybody. And then like the little gremlins known as humans crawled up out of the ashes and just took over everything that was left over. And we don't really fully understand some of the stuff that we have is what it seems like.
And I think like if you look at, if you go back, when was Plato? 2,500 years ago? That's the last record that we have of somebody who claims to have seen actual Atlantis. And Lemuria and Tartaria were before that, weren't they? But let's just stick with Atlantis for the sake of people being more familiar with that and me being more familiar with that. If you were to take,
like that when Atlantis fell, that was the Tartarian Empire. That Tartaria was supposed to be like the world empire that ruled everything, and Atlantis was like their big, and when it fell, that the whole empire fell.
Well, let's take Atlantis and let's take Tartaria. If you took Nazi Germany from the 1940s and you showed it to people in, you showed the remnants of that society to people from 2,500 years ago, it's going to seem like, technological marvels. They're not going to think, oh, well, I bet these people were baking people in ovens. They're going to be like, look at these miraculous machines that they made. Look at all this technology. And
the society did churn out all the worst death weapons that we knew of.
But you could take anything and make it look miraculous if people didn't necessarily know what it was, and they just see a level of technology that they don't understand or not familiar with. So I think I see what you're saying. And
Have you considered the idea that maybe, and this is biblical for if there's anybody out there that thinks biblically, that if you consider the Tartar an idea that maybe that was the end of civilization and now we are in the 1,000-year reign of the
ooh, yeah,
devil in the book
could
of
be,
Revelation?
could be.
It speaks about
Well, a lot of people,
the devil just be
yep,
cut loose.
and they're ready. He's ready for us to take his mark, according to that too. We got some chats here. Renee says it's people like Elijah and Kyle Rittenhouse that give me more hope for my own generation. Yeah, those guys, they did what had to be done, and it wasn't easy for either of them. I'm sure you saw Kyle break down on the stand in tears, and as he was reliving the event, and a lot of people on the ideological media left were, oh, look at the big baby, he's such a big guy. That means that he's actually a feeling human being. So for you to make fun of somebody for crying after he had to take the lives of people who were trying to kill him and calling him a pussy and stuff like that, that just shows a total lack of humanity, in my opinion. Because I don't think anybody is going to come through that without having some kind of PTSD and a lot of bad feelings. Spill the tea talks about the Baghdad battery. Yep, we see those evidence of electricity from thousands of years ago. Atlantis, then Lemuria, then the Tartarian Empire, says Laurel. Hey Laurel, welcome back. She says we need a lot more like him, talking about Elijah there. And Spill the Tea all over me says lots is hidden under the Smithsonian. That's be a good conversation to get into. Miss B upstairs would like to talk to us about that, I'm sure.
She says it's Atlantis, Lemuria, and then the Tartars. I'll do a little bit more research for the episode when we talk about this stuff, so I'll be a little bit more informed. But like, I'm interested. I'm getting more and more interested in that stuff just because I know that's the direction a lot of the internet is being interested, and I want to be informed as what they're talking about.
Well, hey, listen, it's 11:15. My beer is empty, and we've gone through all our stories for tonight. Sean says can't wait till Kyle sues Whoopi. Yeah, so that's where we ended up tonight. But hey, if you haven't liked the video, please do that so it'll get a little more traction in the algorithm. Share it around to somebody else that you think might enjoy it. Send us emails at theironmountainhour@gmail.com. If you have ideas for shows, if you want to correct us on something, if you want to buy a sticker, I'll give you 2 of them for $5 shipped. Just email me and we'll work that out. Good night, Spill the Tea. Hey, again, thank you for joining us. On Sunday, we'll be back with episode 45. We're going to have Jonathan. We're going to discuss Star Wars. So that ought to be a lot of fun. So we're going to get into, the philosophical, the political, the historical, and just the fun aspects of it. Not Maria. We appreciate y'all joining us. We'll see you Sunday. Later.